Hey YouTube, it's Shelly with the Lemonade Store, and I just wanted to go over a couple different lettering styles today while I letter your names. Thanks you guys for subscribing, for all your comments. It totally makes my heart happy, so I wanted to give back today and just go to the name jar and do some different styles. So let's get started, and if you would like to see your name lettered, I usually do them at the end of the videos. I usually will pick one or two. Then comment below, hit the like button, and let's do this. Okay, let's see what we got here. We got a fancy bowl to hold all of them today. And sorry if you hear it's loud in the back because it's 1,000 degrees where I live. Okay, let's do it. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce it, but I'm gonna letter it. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so the first pen that I want to use is one of my favorite pens to use. Have you guys tried the Sharpie stained pens? You can get them usually by the fabric paint or the fabric markers in that section because it's actually a fabric pen. And I'm using watercolor paper. And what's nice about these pens is that when you use them on the watercolor paper and you let the ink fully dry, it will stay like intact and it won't smear when you add watercolor to it. So I'm gonna just go ahead and do some lettering. It's a brush tip. Excuse me, it's a brush tip, so it's awesome that it's a really cool brush tip too. I like it. So try those out. I'll put the links down below for all of the ones that I'm talking about in case you missed it. And let's get started with some watercolor. So I'm kind of digging right now these Royal Talens Ecoline paints. They're a liquid watercolor. You could use any watercolor, but I'm kind of obsessed over these right now. And I pulled a couple of them down, and I showed you guys my sponge there because that's my trick. I don't like to double dip my paints, so I keep water next to me, and then I dab the extra water off on a sponge before I dip it into a different color because I don't want to contaminate my paint. And it's a cool little trick. And I ended up not using any of the orange because I liked how the yellow and the blue kind of made green, like a cool like transition with the green in the middle. So anyways, this is the first one and I'll kind of let it run through. We're going to do a couple more names next. Okay, so for the second name that I'm going to letter today, it's going to be Leslie, if my camera would focus. Okay, so let's do this. Awesome, Leslie. Okay, so I'm going to use my awesome Crayola broadline markers, and I'm also using another watercolor piece of paper. And first I'm going to letter the name, and remember to do heavy pressure on your downstrokes and light pressure on your upstrokes. And if you want to kind of see what I'm doing here, so I'm adding the darker color in the middle, and then I'm taking my watercolor brush and I am, except for the blobby right there, gonna spread it down to kind of give it like a cool blending effect. And it's really fun to like do this with like kids too. Like my daughter loves, you know, using Crayolas and then using watercolor. It's just a fun way to get a cool effect, and the paper gives it that textury feel. So I will also link to all those below as well. So I'm just going to go through and add some color and then add some watercolor, and then I think I use a Crayola super tip to add a cool shadow. You just want to make sure that you dry it really well before you do the next part, because any water-based marker, it's going to do like a bleeding effect. So this is me doing the shadow, And I think I've had a lot of questions about that, so I've been trying to add shadows to the last couple ones so you guys could see how I add my shadows. And I'll just finish going through all those, and then we're going to do one more name, I think, after this. Okay, so let's do one more name, and it's going to be Crystal. Yay, let's do it. Okay, so for this one I'm going to use my Rodea notepad, and you can also use like 32-pound premium laser dip paper. You just want something that doesn't, it's kind of like a smooth surface. And I'm using my Pentel touch sign pen. And I'm going to just kind of play around with some flourishes. And, you know, I'm not the best at these pens, but I think it's like we all have to practice on something, so I'm forcing myself to use it more. So I actually like the way it looks with like even darker downstrokes, so I always go back in and make my downstrokes thicker. And you could totally do that. There's no rules here. Do what makes you happy. I always get bummed out when I see people be like, oh, you can't do that. Well, yes, I can. So here you go. And just play around with the connections and the flourishing and have fun with it. So I want to thank you guys so much for subscribing. If you would like to see your name lettered, leave a comment, and I appreciate the likes, you guys. Thanks.